Das sollte der Islam sein. Das war die große Sache. Aber er ist ins Weltergewicht aufgestiegen. Glaubst du, er wechselte ins Weltergewicht, um dich zu umgehen oder wegen seiner Ziele?
Weil er seine eigenen Ziele hat. Das ist meine Meinung. Denkst du immer noch, dass das ein Kampf ist, der stattfinden sollte? Ihr beide schmiedet Vermächtnisse in verschiedenen Gewichtsklassen. Denkst du, dass das ein wichtiger Kampf ist, der stattfinden sollte? Wir werden sehen, wie er sich im Weltergewicht schlägt. Wenn er den Titel gewinnt, gewinne ich den Titel im Leichtgewicht. Vielleicht steige ich auf oder er kommt ins Leichtgewicht und wir haben den Kampf, den jeder will.
I think there is a space for it. I have a little space here.
Ilia Topuria sent a clear warning message to Islam Makhachev, warning to Islam Makhachev, one so pointed, so specific, that it's making headlines across every sports network. At a press conference in Georgia, Topuria didn't just call out his rival. He laid down an ultimatum that could change everything. If Islam loses, he may as well go back to Dagestan, to his farm and continue shepherding his sheep. But if he wins, I'll definitely move up. Definitely. 100%. Those words aren't just trash talk. They're a calculated declaration with massive implications for the sport. This is the story we're leading with tonight, and it's going to reshape the landscape of UFC's biggest stars. Let's dig deeper into what Topuria is really saying here. This isn't casual trash talk. This is a fighter drawing a line in the sand, setting conditions that could determine the course of both their careers.
Last conversations about I had with the UFC, they personally asked me the favor, like, don't tell us after the fight that you want to move to the welterweight division. Made us a promise. And I was like, promise.
Were you crossing your fingers though?
Yeah.
Because that
I was
that
like, I
would,
swear to promise.
By telling Makhachev to go back to his farm if he loses, Topuria is saying one thing very clearly. If you don't become welterweight champion, you don't get me. You don't get this historic opportunity. This is psychological warfare at the highest level. Topuria is putting enormous pressure on Makhachev heading into UFC 322. He's essentially saying, your entire future with me depends on what happens in that cage against Della Maddalena. And here's the kicker. Makhachev knows exactly what's at stake. This isn't some distant hypothetical. This is real, and it's personal. The warning has been delivered. Now we wait to see how Makhachev responds. What makes this so significant? Topuria is chasing something unprecedented in mixed martial arts history, becoming the first fighter ever to hold titles in 3 different weight classes simultaneously. Let me break this down. Topuria already made history by moving from featherweight to lightweight, knocking out Charles Oliveira in a dominant first-round performance at UFC 317 in June. That victory wasn't just impressive. It announced to the world that Topuria's power and precision transcend weight classes. Now he's proposing a third act, a move to welterweight to face Makhachev, who would also be a champion. This isn't some fantasy booking. This is a fighter with a legitimate plan and the credentials to back it up. I think it would be one of the biggest fights in UFC history. No one has fought for a third title, and Islam has dominantly finished everything he needed to do in his division and then changed weight classes. I think it's a fight of a giant magnitude. Consider what we're talking about here. Makhachev, the pound-for-pound king, moved up to welterweight to challenge Jack Della Maddalena. If he wins, he becomes a 2-division champion. Then, if he faces Topuria, who would still hold the lightweight belt, we'd have an unprecedented champion versus champion showdown. We've seen double champs in the UFC before. Conor McGregor, Amanda Nunes, Daniel Cormier. But a triple threat? A fighter competing for 3 different belts across 3 different weight classes? That's never happened. That's the stuff of legends. The stage? The White House on June 14, 2026. A venue so historic, it would elevate this fight beyond anything the UFC has ever staged. This isn't just a title defense. This is a moment that would define a generation of fighters.
And then June 14th, next year, we're going to have a big UFC fight at the White House, right at the White House, on the grounds of the White House.
Now, Islam Makhachev hasn't been silent on social media. The former lightweight champion, preparing for his own title shot against Jack Della Maddalena at UFC 322 in November, took to Twitter with a response that's stirring the pot. While Makhachev hasn't directly responded to Topuria's ultimatum, insiders suggest he's acutely aware of what's at stake. If he wins in New York, he becomes a champion at 170 pounds. If he loses, according to Topuria, that historic White House showdown simply doesn't happen.
You said that you're ready to go up a division. There's a tweet from Ilia Topuria that he can go up the weight and he can beat you with no problem. What do you think about that?
Не знаю, еще столько соперников, и все хотят меня там в первом, во втором раунде финишировать, все говорят об этом. Но я же сказал, сделайте 70 килограмм, заходите в клетку и посмотрим, кто кого финиширует там.
There's all these opponents, they all say they want to finish me in the first or second round. I already said, if you can make 155, you can get into the cage. Let's talk about it then.
This is psychological warfare at its finest. Topuria is making Makhachev carry the weight of a potential trilogy on his shoulders when he steps into the cage. Here's where it gets complicated. Topuria still needs to defend his lightweight title before we even get to the White House. UFC President Dana White has hinted that El Matador could headline the promotion's debut on Paramount Plus in early 2026, potentially January. But Topuria's laser focus remains fixed on that June date at the White House. He's not interested in defending against just anyone. He's waiting for the biggest moment, the biggest stage, the biggest opponent. Potential challengers for his lightweight belt include Paddy Pimblett, who had that memorable face-off with Topuria, and veteran contender Justin Gaethje. Both have expressed interest in a title shot. But sources close to Gaethje's camp suggest he might be reconsidering his options. His manager recently hinted online that the fight game is a business and money talks.
Happy knockouts, I give you that respect, but you will never knock me out. I finish you. I finish you. Let me go. I finish you. That was so good. It's Conor McGregor, bro. That is going to be incredible.
The timeline is crucial. If Makhachev defeats Della Maddalena at UFC 322 this November, it sets the dominoes in motion. Both fighters could be champions heading into the White House event if Makhachev falls short. According to Topuria, the dream dies with it. We're looking at a carefully orchestrated plan here. Topuria is playing chess while others play checkers. This isn't just about two fighters anymore. The UFC White House event is being positioned as potentially the largest event in company history. Securing a matchup like Topuria versus Makhachev, if both hold titles, would be a coup.
Yeah.
Если спросить меня, мне, конечно, хочется за второй пояс подраться. Для меня, никому не секрет, тот парень, который сейчас 93. Если в стойке с ним не заигрываться, для меня очень удобный соперник.
Pereira.
Да, все говорят, он слишком мощный парень, но...
Chimaev has just dropped a massive bombshell, directly challenging light heavyweight king Alex Pereira and claiming he's the perfect matchup for a historic two-division title showdown. But Pereira wants John Jones to win the heavyweight championship in the UFC White House.
Essa é a melhor aposta?
Não, queria super luta.
No, I want a super fight.
Oh, super fight at heavyweight.
I can think of one.
Wow,
name
Derek
that would,
Lewis. It's Aspinall, man.
Bom, não sei se Casa Branca, John Jones.
John
Seria uma
Jones.
super luta.
At the White House. John Jones. That's a super fight.
All right, so he's
Just weeks after capturing the UFC middleweight championship with a dominant performance over Dricus du Plessis at UFC 319, Khamzat Chimaev isn't content to sit and celebrate. The 31-year-old undefeated phenom has already set his sights on an even bigger game.
Shoulder. But he's okay just sitting here. He knows it's short time.
Final seconds.
In an exclusive interview with Aslanbek Badaev on the Badaev podcast, Chimaev made his intentions crystal clear. He wants a second UFC championship belt, and he's identified light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira as his ideal target. If you ask me, of course I would love to fight for the second belt. It's no secret the guy who's got the belt at 205 pounds now is a very good matchup for me, except for should I get reckless standing with him.
Если спросить меня, мне, конечно, хочется за второй пояс подраться. Для меня, никому не секрет, тот парень, который сейчас 93, если в стойке с ним не заигрываться, для меня очень удобно.
This isn't just casual trash talk. Chimaev is making a calculated assessment of the matchup. He's analyzing styles, understanding the risks, and expressing genuine confidence in his ability to capture a second world title. That's the mentality of a true championship-level competitor. The fascinating aspect of this potential super fight comes down to contrasting combat styles. Chimaev and Pereira represent opposite ends of the fighting spectrum. Alex Pereira is renowned for his elite-level kickboxing. He brings devastating striking power, accurate combinations, and the ability to end fights with single shots. His knockouts have sent elite fighters crashing to the canvas. His power is legendary in the UFC. Khamzat Chimaev, conversely, is a wrestling machine. He's dominated opponents through relentless grappling, suffocating top control, and ground-and-pound precision. His wrestling style has dismantled some of the sport's best competitors. He's never been edged out in power, and he's never been beaten. Here's where Chimaev's confidence shines through. They say he has a lot of power, but I've never been edged out in that area. He used to fight at 185 too, and then moved up to 205. So I would like to fight at light heavyweight.
Да, все говорят, слишком мощный парень, но где-то в мощи я нигде не уступал никому. Поэтому я думаю, он тоже 84 выступал и перешел в 93. Хотелось бы 93 подраться, а так...
Chimaev's strategy is clear. Keep the fight off the feet and drag Pereira into deep waters where wrestling dominates. It's a classic matchmaking nightmare for strikers, a relentless grappler with size, strength, and technical mastery. However, Chimaev also showed respect for the danger involved, acknowledging that getting reckless standing with Pereira could be catastrophic. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. Alex Pereira didn't ignore Chimaev's callout. The light heavyweight champion took to Twitter to send his own message, and it created a social media firestorm. Pereira's response demonstrates that the Brazilian striker is willing to take on this challenge. The champion isn't backing down, and he's not intimidated by Chimaev's wrestling credentials or undefeated record.
Deixa alto aqui pra você, tá bom? Segura. Não. Segura direto, Thiago. Vou assim aqui.
What we're witnessing is the beginning of a genuine rivalry, building in real time. Both men are at the absolute peak of their powers. Both hold world titles in the UFC. and both seem genuinely interested in testing themselves against elite opposition. The Twitter exchange has already generated massive buzz across the MMA community. Fans are picking sides, analysts are breaking down the matchup, and the conversation has shifted from if this fight happens to when. Now, let's be realistic about the timeline. This super fight isn't happening next month. Both fighters have immediate responsibilities. Chimaev still has legitimate middleweight contenders waiting for him. Names like Nasruddin Imavov, Rainier de Ritter, and Anthony Hernandez are all in the conversation for a title shot. Chimaev has acknowledged that he'll need to handle business at 185 pounds first.
Там Насруддина дадут, или Деридера дадут, или Эрнандеса. Мне особой такой разницы нет, чтобы самое главное заплатили хорошо.
Meanwhile, Pereira has been chasing his own big money fights. There's been serious speculation about a heavyweight showdown against John Jones at a potential White House event in Washington, D.C. in June 2026. That's the kind of mainstream attention that captures Pereira's focus. However, Chimaev has already demonstrated his willingness to chase Pereira anywhere. He previously stated, "I'm ready to fight you at heavyweight." This tells us everything we need to know about his determination and ambition. The reality is that a super fight between these two champions could be one of the biggest moments in UFC history. We're talking about an undefeated wrestler challenging a striker with multiple championship reigns. The stylistic clash alone would be must-see television. What's particularly impressive about Chimaev's approach is his balanced perspective. He's supremely confident, but he's not dismissive of Pereira's abilities. When discussing Pereira's recent knockout victory over Magomed Ankalaev at UFC 320, Chimaev offered this analysis. "Well, I wasn't particularly surprised because that guy hits hard. I always knew he could land accurately. And if he lands clean, it's not just Ankalaev. Everyone's lights will shut off." This is the language of a true champion. Chimaev respects the threat Pereira presents. He acknowledges that striking matchups are inherently unpredictable. He understands that one perfectly placed shot could change everything. Yet, he still backs up his confidence with reasoning. He's never been finished by strikes. He's denavigated dangerous strikers before. His wrestling creates angles and opportunities that counter elite striking. This is analytical confidence, not blind arrogance. We're witnessing the next major storyline in UFC championship-level combat. Khamzat Chimaev has thrown down the gauntlet, Alex Pereira has responded, and now it's just a matter of when, not if, these two incredible athletes collide. This potential super fight represents everything that makes the UFC great. Elite athletes testing themselves at the highest levels, championship glory on the line, and the pure competitive spirit that drives combat sports. Keep it locked right here for all the latest updates on this developing championship rivalry. Will Chimaev become a two-division champion? Can Pereira defend his crown against wrestling's elite? We'll find out soon enough. I'm your host. Thanks for joining us tonight. For more breaking MMA news and analysis, subscribe now and hit that notification bell. Until next time, keep fighting.
Is this fight against Dan personal for you? Because, you know, the tweets back and forth between you guys, do you feel like this is a personal fight?
I mean, no, it's not personal fight because it's just
You remember this one?
it's just a business, you know.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's a business. Yeah, of course. On the real life, I know he's gonna shut his mouth and like he couldn't say anything about me. But when it's gonna be media or a lot of people, of course, he can do something.
Dana, earlier this week, you scheduled Arman Tsarukyan to fight Dan Hooker in November.
Yeah.
And will the winner of that fight become the #1 contender in the lightweight division?
Will the number of that? Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Dana.
Arman Tsarukyan just sent a clear warning message to Ilia Topuria. Tsarukyan believes he's being deliberately kept away from Ilia Topuria, and he's not holding back anymore. Quote, "The UFC knows I'm the only one that can beat Ilia Topuria. Let's get straight into it. Arman Tsarukyan just went on the record with Ariel Helwani, and he did not hold back. When asked about Paddy Pimblett potentially fighting Ilia Topuria, Tsarukyan shut it down immediately. His exact words? No way. I'm the only one that can beat Ilia, for now, in our division. And everybody knows that. Even the UFC knows that.